Howdy, mates. Good afternoon. How are we doing? No, really. How are we all doing? Especially after these past couple of weeks that have just been quite of a game changer. And just not too long ago, I made an actual written testimony on just some of the experiences and what we can do to actually recover from something like this, with which I do believe we are capable of, since it has happened before, and we can do it again, certainly. If nature can rebuild, so can we. So today I'm actually over revisiting the Cedar Point Environmental Park over in Englewood, Florida, so closer to where I live, and just wanted to come back to this park just to see how it turned out, especially after Ian's wrath. It's crazy to think how that major event, it was already over 2.5 weeks ago. And before you know it, it'll be a month, 2 months, and eventually it'll be an entire year. So, that being said, I hope that all of my followers on my platform, I hope all of you have fared well throughout all of this, for those who are down in Florida. And, as I've stated in my testimony that I wrote just yesterday, I hope that if any of you guys do need help in any way, shape, or form, I'll try my best to do so. Or if I can't do it personally, I may know someone who can be in that position. That's the neat thing about social media. That is a good aspect of it, is it can help spread some word, and it allows networking to be a lot easier. So, where I am today in particular, this is the Lemon Bay. This is the dominant estuary that is found on in this part of the Gulf Coast. So it's ironic that I'm basically doing like a sort of like a coastal type of video, where just this past Friday I started another class that is called the Freshwater Systems, offered by the Florida Master Naturalist program. I finally, what you call, nudged my way in, so to speak. So I'll look forward to making more informed postings about that class. But not to digress, this is the Lemon Bay Estuary, which is somewhat relevant to the class I'm taking. Estuary is really the mixture between freshwater and saltwater. But you could say, right now, given that, there's still a lot of runoff that is occurring right now, specifically from inland, from rivers and bays, it is bound to be that the concentration of freshwater will be a little higher at this time. I mean, eventually, an estuary tends to balance itself out, but given that, we're still experiencing just the tail end of the rainy season, and with how much flooding and runoff has occurred, we're going to have a higher freshwater concentration. And actually, just yesterday, I didn't start the freshwater class yesterday. I started it on Friday. For some reason, I was thinking it was Saturday. Yesterday, I actually paid a brief visit over at the Gulf right now, and you figure since the runoff is so high right now, the water, even in the Gulf, looks somewhat brackish at the moment. So, it's going to take a couple of weeks for nature to essentially return to its state that it was in prior to the hurricane happening. And This actually brings up another subject, too, is the fact that, we go back 5 years, Hurricane Irma happened. Now, me personally, I did not experience that, but I had a couple of family members who were evacuating when that happened, and Hurricane Irma happened around the same time as Ian did 5 years ago. But the thing is that following summer in 2018, they experienced, especially in the Gulf Coast, a really bad red tide. Now, given that Hurricane Ian had such a higher magnitude and impact than what Irma did, I don't always try to be a Debbie Downer in this, but we have to stay prepared for next year. Because you figure if Red Tide 2018 was rough, after Irma happening, it is a possibility that Red Tide in 2023 could be even worse. And that's when we really need to act as advocates, to bring that type of matter into attention. Just because, since there was so much more flooding and some of the storm surges were even worse, especially down in Fort Myers Beach, Sanibel, and Pine Island, it's going to meet up with that inland where there's a plethora of nutrients, especially from applied fertilizers. And that being said, eventually that water's got to go back out to the shore. So it's going to, it's happening right now as we speak. High volumes of nutrients in the form of nitrates and phosphates are being transferred over to the Gulf. And who knows, maybe even the Atlantic coast is actually going to get a piece of it too. Who can say? But we have to stay prepared for it. But aside from that, reason that I like enjoy visiting this particular spot is, for one, I've volunteered here many times when time permits. Still need to have a job, of course. And in the Lemon Bay, this is one of the only areas that has some of the highest volumes of seagrass beds, which is right below me. So you can see some of the turtle grass that looks, a little thicker. It forms that thicker mat. But then, you come down here where you see some of the thinner strands. Given that this particular strand is flat, this is most likely shoal grass. Now, the thing is, many seagrass species look very similar to each other. So, usually the most common you'll find over here include the turtle grass that I just pointed out, manatee grass, and shoal grass. Now, a good difference to tell the difference, am I repeating myself? Good way to know between shoal grass and manatee grass is shoal grass is flat. It has a flat blade, whereas manatee grass is a bit more of a round strand. Kind of reminds you of spaghetti. But then again, there are many other forms of seagrass too, other species. They include widgeon, which in a sense also looks similar to shoal grass. The thing is, widgeon grass doesn't grow as long in length. And then you also have paddlegrass and even stargrass. Now, those species in particular, they kind of reminds me of mangroves, but underwater, of course. You know, they tend to have more of those oval shaped leaves. And the thing is, seagrass, it's not the same thing as seaweed. Seagrass they actually have roots established in the bed, and they also flower. Seaweed doesn't do that. It's a floating plant, and it doesn't flower. So, I figure since this video is already 10.5 minutes, I think this is a good point to wrap up. So, hopefully I can upload this video on soon. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Journey on a Journey is outwards. Take care, folks. See ya.